Welcome to Political Beatdown. I am Ben Meiselas, joined by the one and only Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is here. He was recently deposed in the New York Attorney General's civil fraud case against Donald Trump. Guess who's not here? Donald Trump. Donald Trump was in Scotland. Now he's in Ireland. He was telling the press there that he's got to leave early because he claims he's going to return to the United States because he wants to confront E. Jean Carroll. That's what he told the press in Ireland. And then
Ben, you know what he's shoveling over there? He's shoveling bullshit. That's what he's shoveling, right?
Bullshit after bullshit. And Takapina was asked, like, hey, so Trump's coming back to testify? Even Takapina's kind of lost it. You know, Takapina's just like, I have no clue what the guy is talking about. And this also comes after Donald Trump lost another lawsuit. You know, he likes to talk about $500 million lawsuit, $100 million lawsuit. This is a defamation case that he filed a year or so ago against the New York Times, maybe even a little bit longer ago, for defamation in connection with a story that they wrote about his tax fraud. And he said, what a great case, what a strong case he had. Not only did he lose, but the court awarded attorney's fees to the New York Times. And Cohen, you have a case of your own. He sued New York Times for $100 million and lost. And
I too have a case. $500 million he's suing me for. You know, it's interesting because first he lost a case that now he and Alina Habba, it's really Donald, has to pay $1 million as sort of a restitution to the court for malicious prosecution and so on. You know, now he has to pay legal fees to the New York Times. You know, there was some bad reporting once again. You know, they also claimed that not only was this case dismissed, but the case that involved Mary Trump, Donald's niece, was also dismissed. And from some of the other reportings that I read, that's just absolutely not accurate. You know, this is the problem. You know, I understand that people make mistakes. Don't get me wrong. Everybody makes mistakes. Lord knows I know that. All right. Except they're not supposed to make mistakes when you're a newspaper, because people rely upon that information for accuracy. And how it ended up getting all the way through edit to, you know, to review and check and so on without this, being caught and flagged, I really don't know the answer. But I will tell you, and I will share with my, political beatdown brigaders, Monday is when our papers are due to be filed in the Southern District of Miami, Florida. All right. So those papers go in on Monday, and then there is a conference, a document conference that will come the week after that. So Monday, you'll start to see the very first set of papers by my counsel, Danya Perry and Ben Brodsky. You'll start to see papers, filed, and we'll be talking about them as well.
So that paperwork relates to the $500 million lawsuit that Donald Trump sued you in federal court in the Southern District of Florida in the Miami division. He made a bunch of very frivolous claims. Nonetheless, it's still a $500 million lawsuit, as we discussed here, that needs to be taken very, very seriously. I've stated here my own personal view that I thought Donald Trump was judge shopping or forum shopping. Didn't necessarily go the way he wanted it to go, but he did not want the case to be in the Southern District of Florida before Judge Middlebrooks, who had just sanctioned him the $1 million. So Donald Trump, who accuses everybody else of judge shopping, thought that he was going to get a very Trump-friendly judge, is what I suppose his thinking was, by filing it in the Miami division and not the West Palm Beach County division. Can you give any hints? Let me ask you this about in terms of the motion. Are you going to be filing something substantive, or is it just going to be like an appearance, or is it going to be some sort of substantive?
Appearances have already been made. That's already been filed. This is going to be substantive. And, I don't want to get ahead of, myself. I certainly don't want to get ahead of Danya and Ben. So let's sort of try to table that a little bit, other than to say it's going to be substantive and it'll be very telling. Let me put it to you that way. Donald has to be held accountable for all of this, frivolity in terms of how he uses the court. I'll give you an example. I am going to trial against Trump and the Trump Organization for legal fees that I expended on his behalf. And that case was originally filed in 2019. Could you imagine 2019? So 4 years later, and we're finally getting to trial. And there is no escaping it. Very much like Judge Engoron, it's set in stone. And, this case is unusual because they've already conceded liability. This is merely a trial for damages. So the question is not whether or not I win in this case, it's rather how much. And this is money that, again, was expended at his direction and on his behalf. So, stay tuned for that also. But this $500 million lawsuit, this cannot be taken lightly, despite all of the statements that you hear on a regular basis from counsel, who decide that they wish to opine. And it makes no difference whether they're on Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS. It makes no difference. They all say the same thing, that this case is just frivolous and it lacks merit. So, the question is, you still have to defend it. That's the problem. And defending these actions it's just not cheap. And he knows that. You see, Donald used or is using this $500 million lawsuit against me as more than just a lawsuit against me for this, alleged, for all these allegations. I don't even want to go into them. They're that stupid. What he's doing is he's basically witness tampering and obstructing justice. If you are a potential witness, why in the world would you want to have to defend a $500 million lawsuit against Donald Trump and go through the expense of defending it, which you have to do? You can't ignore it. You ignore it, they get a default judgment against you. That's exactly what they're hoping would happen. So people who would necessarily come forward and testify, are now turning around and saying, I really don't want to be involved in this, and so, they change their tune. And again, it's all about trying to hold Donald Trump accountable for what he has done, not what people want him to be held accountable for, but what he is accountable for and what, the court will ultimately determine. So it shouldn't be based upon your like or dislike for Donald. It should be based upon facts and, facts presented in a court of law, not a court of public opinion.
Anything else going on, Cohen, with your other cases? Any other depositions on the horizon, and anything else we should be looking forward to?
No, not yet. I mean, I prefer it this way. It's, I spent 7 hours. There were 11 attorneys. It was my attorney, Jeffrey K. Levine. There were 3 from government, and then there were 7 from, the various different Trump and, Trump entities, Trump, as well as other individuals who were named in that New York State Attorney General case. So I'm happy right now. I don't have anything. I just have a lot of litigation that's still pending. As it stands right now, we're still waiting for government to deal with Donald in the District Attorney of New York case. You may have seen the recent articles that were put out there where Alvin Bragg went to the judge, I should say the DA's office, went to the judge in order to prohibit Trump from releasing documents that he will obtain as a direct result of discovery, which he is entitled to prevent them from releasing it to the public, through his, social media platforms. We'll wait to see technically what happens with that one. That's a really tricky matter because, he's claiming, and rightfully so, it's his First Amendment right. If he wants to put that stuff out there, I don't know why he would want to. I don't think it benefits him no more than I think that my testifying before, Trump's counsel for that New York State Attorney General case provided any benefit to him. But look, he seems to have a cascade of incompetent counsel directing him every step of the way. So, maybe it'll just help to make the cases move quicker.
We also learned this week that Matthew Calamari Sr. and Matthew Calamari Jr., his son, they're speaking before the grand jury in Washington, D.C. in connection with special counsel Jack Smith's ongoing criminal investigation into Donald Trump, and specifically whether surveillance footage at Mar-a-Lago was tampered with. How big is this, Cohen? And can you explain for our viewers and listeners who the Calamaris are, your dealings with them, and how you think their testimony before the grand jury in D.C. is going to be?
And so Matt is an interesting character at the Trump Organization, very much like most people, that work there. He's a very interesting guy, insofar as he started out as Trump's driver and bodyguard. And he's managed over the course of 4 decades now. He's there almost as long as Alan Weisselberg, shy by a couple of years, but he managed to move up to the highly esteemed position of chief operating officer. Now, his son, Matty, good kid, smart kid, decided not so intelligently to come work at the Trump Organization. And Matt put him in charge of, believe it or not, technology, security, cameras, updating systems, helping with, operations as well. Matty basically controls all the cameras in all of the Trump facilities that are all uploaded to a single, server or sets of servers that he has the capability of monitoring and, of course, extrapolating the information that is wanted. What I understand is not that the tapes have been manipulated. This isn't like, Ocean's 11 or something where they have a clip and they put it onto a wire and then it runs a loop where nobody is there and so on. That's not what I believe that they're looking for. What I believe that they're looking for is answers as to why it took so long in order to obtain the information that they have been seeking. And this information is extremely important. Many people may turn around and say, come on, what kind of bullshit? Who cares? They got the tapes. It doesn't really matter. Well, sure, it matters. Not only does that specific request, but it must be a lengthy time period in front of that door. They want to see who went in, who went out, whether or not boxes were removed or documents were removed or anybody unauthorized managed to get into that facility, the storage facility, right? And, either copied or took top secret U.S. documents. So, yeah, it's really important. And the fact that, this was not provided to government immediately, I believe, is the reason why they are calling the two Calamaris, to speak before the special counsel. Now, another thing that I could probably tell you with relative certainty that conversation that they will be having with the special counsel's team, to be very honest with you, is not just going to be centric to the videotapes and to the security system and so on. Rest assured, it will definitively encompass other aspects of the Trump Organization, because Matt was basically doing the same thing that Alan Weisselberg was doing and that he was charged with. He had an apartment that was, where, here in the city, he had an apartment. So did Maddie. And then they also were given vehicles. And I've never seen their tax returns. So I'm basically speculating that, they didn't report it either as income or so on. I don't know about any payments for education or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure that the special counsel has more questions to ask than just merely about the videotaping machine and security.
So there we talk about calamaris. We talked earlier in the week about Dan Scavino. So Dan Scavino worked as Trump's caddy and then basically became the deputy chief of staff. You have
after becoming caddy, he became, let's not forget his resume, his CV, impressive CV that it is. He became the general manager of Trump National Briarcliff Manor, which is in Westchester.
And then he rose up to become basically the deputy chief of staff and was social media director. You have the calamaris, Trump's drivers, who rose to the level of COO. And now they're all testifying before the grand jury and special counsel Jack Smith. I mean, he only hires the best people, right, Cohen?
Oh, whoa, take it easy there. I was there for 10 years also. And then, next year you're going to have Jack Smith. And I heard this once by a comic, he's going to be, you're going to see Jack Smith very soon subpoenaing Big Petey, Little Petey, Medium Petey, Wee Petey, Ortho Petey, Petey, Joe Bag of Donuts, Muscles Marinara, Squiddly Diddly, Parmesan. All right. At the end of the day, that's who he's coming. That's who he's coming to speak to. And what do you think he's going to end up with? Who knows? Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, there have been so many people testifying before this January 6th committee. They have 1,000 people have testified at this point or have given testimony. You have millions of documents that have been given. There comes a point in time, and my mom always says to me, it's time for them to shit or get off the pot. It's enough already. It's truly enough. How much more do you need? You have emails. You have text messages going in and out of the White House. You now have 4 members of the Oath Keepers today that they were charged and sentenced, right, to seditious conspiracy. You know how significant that is? You have any idea? This isn't like a charge that anybody thought was going to be possible. I mean, you have to attempt to overthrow the government, and you have to try and coordinate the overthrow with other people. And they did it. They were successful. These 4, I don't even know what the guidelines are for seditious conspiracy. What is it? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? I mean, who the hell knows? Are you going to, some supermax because it's seditious conspiracy? I mean, I'm waiting to see, what all the information is, where these folks are going to go, what the length that they're going to be given. I mean, look, it is serious. I mean, this whole January 6th is really serious, but holy crap, nobody thought that they were going to be. I mean, think about how many pundits on television got this shit wrong. Oh, come on. It has never been applied. It doesn't really, it didn't really mean it for this. And at the end, no. Today, 4 of them, and there will be more.
So, yeah, you had the Oath Keepers, 2 Oath Keeper trials where they were guilty of seditious conspiracy. Now you have the Proud Boys guilty of seditious conspiracy. You go into the U.S. Code, 18 U.S.C. Section 2384, which talks about seditious conspiracy. Cohen, it is a 20-year charge for seditious conspiracy, up to 20 years. By the way, I think it should be more. I don't know why it's only 20 years. If you try to overthrow the government, there are some white collar crimes when you add up the various counts where people serve, multiples of that sentence, but it's 20 years. And you had 4 of the Proud Boys today being found guilty of seditious conspiracy. All 5 of the Proud Boys Pizzola was not guilty. Well, there was a deadlock on Pizzola. Nordian, Biggs, Rel, Tario were all found guilty, but all 5 were found guilty of obstruction and other charges that will put them all together put them away for about 20 years. So all of them guilty on lots of the other charges. On the seditious conspiracy, you had 4 who were found guilty of seditious conspiracy. But to your point, the Department of Justice has now done 3 trials. The Oath Keepers 1, Oath Keepers 2. I think they did a 3rd Oath Keepers that they're doing, a Proud Boys trial, seditious conspiracy.
Okay,
and now they're working their way to Donald Trump.
Yes, they're doing, Ben, what they're supposed to do. Here's the problem, though. The real problem is that these are low-level assholes. Yes, I get it. Enrique Tarrio, the head of the Oath Keep. By the way, speaking of it today, right? May the 4th be with you, right? I mean, these guys really thought they were going to get away with it. No, right? Yoda, Donald, right? He wasn't able to, turn around and use his, mind melding trick over here in order to, to change the decision, right? Which he thinks that he's able to. He can do whatever he wants just by thinking it. Well, it doesn't really work that way. But what bothers me the most, so far, everyone who has been charged, and these are significant charges. You've already stated that with pretty good clarity. These are significant charges carrying up to 20 years or possibly more. I'm not so sure it's 20 years only, but 20 years. And at the end of the day, what about all of the big shots? What about the members of Congress that assisted? What about some of the folks like Eric and Lara Trump that ended up seizing the ellipse, what was supposed to be, a rally, and then they turned it into a march? They violated a whole slew of things. What about Rudy Colludi, drunken Giuliani with his bullshit, or Josh Hawley, pushing people to go to the Capitol along with Donald? I mean, there's a lot of people here, government-wise, players, real players, not these morons that were following the biggest liar in chief that's out there. Instead, it's only the little guy that gets fucked. I mean, like me. For God's sakes, where are the ones who are really responsible for it? How is Donald already not indicted on this charge? I mean, we should all be happy. They got Enrique Tarrio. Fuck him. Who cares about him, right? Okay, he broke the law. He should be held accountable. But it's not just the little guys that are supposed to be held accountable. In fact, it should be the big guys too. And that's just, it's just not happening, or it's not happening fast enough.
It's a great point, because if you have Enrique Tarrio and these Proud Boys guilty of seditious conspiracy, why not Jared Kushner? Why not Ivanka? Why not Rudy Giuliani? And of course, why not Donald Trump? They were the ones who coordinated and planned this. Heck, the defense by the Proud Boys was Trump made us do it. That's what Enrique Tarrio argued.
Not only are they not charged yet, right? They go to work every single day where we're paying them. These are fucking traitors. They are traitors to the Constitution. They are traitors to the Capitol. I mean, these are the same people. I don't care that they weren't on the outside, that they were on the inside. These are the same people that caused this entire ruckus where they wanted to hang Mike Pence and kill Nancy Pelosi. They're responsible, as far as I'm concerned, for all of the damage that took place inside the People's House. They're responsible for all of this, and yet these are the same assholes that are voting on bills and that are legislating on behalf of the people that they were traitorous to. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No, speaking of that, I mean, there's corruption. It seems at all layers of this modern day Republican Party. Did you see the story today, too, about Clarence Thomas? Like, it just gets deeper and deeper. So he sent his grandnephew to a private school, and it turns out that that billionaire Harlan Crow paid for the tuition. It was never disclosed. It could have been up to $150,000 worth of private school tuition. And look, while I think it is laudable that, you have a situation where Clarence Thomas brought in, his grandnephew who was going through difficult circumstances to make sure that his grandnephew got a great education. Granted, that's a laudable thing to do. What isn't is, by the way, Clarence Thomas is making like $1 million a year between him and his wife and the books. He makes like $1 million on his disclosure. So he has the money to pay for it himself. What's not laudable, and in my view, what's criminal, is taking the money from a billionaire to pay for it and not disclosing it. And the Republicans just seem totally fine with that. You've got
because he's pro-Republican on them. So whatever he does, let me be very clear about this. If this was any other judge outside of Clarence Thomas being on the Supreme Court, they would have their hands in handcuffs behind their back, and they would be marched right in front of a judge immediately. What this is absolutely 100% bribery. As far as I'm concerned with Harlan, there's no question in my mind, because he's like a religious zealot, and there are things that he wants or that he wanted. And on top of that, I believe that he even had certain matters before the Supreme Court. So look, it's whatever it is, it's the problem is that there is no code of ethics for the Supreme Court. I don't understand this. Congress members have codes of ethics. They don't fucking follow it, but they have it. The president and the vice president, the members of the cabinet all have codes of ethics. In fact, Norm Eisen, who's going to be on my podcast, was the ethics czar appointed by Obama. Now, interestingly enough, he has actually helped out and represented Republicans and Democrats in their transition so that they understand and that they don't violate the code of ethics. The Supreme Court just doesn't have one. And the funny thing is that they don't even want to have a code of ethics. This makes no sense to me at all.
And they say, look, we're handling it perfectly. John Roberts says, we have a general guidance of ethics that we follow. We're doing nothing wrong here. And then they say, look, this is just hospitality. Well, what's wrong? It's just us going on vacations with people. And most Americans look at that and go, wow, if that is how the Supreme Court views this issue, how do they have credibility on anything? It's just consistent and constant gaslighting, Cohen, over and over again.
Yeah, look, it's all about, the word of the day is accountability. We all want to see Donald Trump held accountable for his dirty deeds. We want to see Bill Barr held accountable for his dirty deeds, the way he weaponized on behalf of Donald, the Department of Justice. I don't know why nobody has, brought him before a committee yet. I don't understand that one, especially after all the information that we have. We want to see all of these folks not found guilty because we don't like them or because they're Republicans, we're Democrats, or whatever. We want accountability, and we're not getting accountability from anyone on this Republican side, and that includes the Supreme Court of the United States of America. For how many years did we all turn around and say they are basically above reproach? They are the superior nine, that they sit on this court, on this highest court in the land, that they have the jobs for life, simply so that nobody can ever effectuate a decision that benefits them by giving them anything. Nothing like that. We always put them at the highest level and the highest esteem. Well, not anymore. In fact, under Justice Roberts right now, it is the lowest approval rating for the Supreme Court. And one of the things that I keep saying, whether it's television, to the press, on here, the Political Beatdown, my Mea Culpa podcast, wherever anybody wants to listen, the thing I keep saying is, what is Joe Biden doing? As far as I'm concerned, you have to be a little Trumpian on this one. Put 4 more Supreme Court justices immediately onto the court, right? Change the balance of power. Because nobody says, there's nothing in the Constitution that says they could only be 9. Well, let's make it 13. Add 4 more and, put 4 more decent people. I'm not saying Democrats. Put, as far as I'm concerned, 2 and 2, but don't put as religious zealots, which is what Donald Trump put in, because that's what he was told to put in. This is horrible.
Did you and this is the tweet that the House Judiciary GOP just put out. We'll put it up here. They wrote, retweet this if you think Justice Thomas is, and it's a GOAT emoji, which stands for greatest of all time. So the House Judiciary GOP, after this story broke, that yet another payment made by Harlan Crow, this time to pay the private school tuition of Justice Clarence Thomas's grandnephew, the House Judiciary GOP just sticks their middle finger right at the American people and says, GOAT. RT, if you think Justice Thomas is the GOAT. What we put out on MeidasTouch, our response to that was, it's all a big joke to them. It's the most corrupt and anti-American party in the history of the United States. And just like amateurish and clownish, Cohen, like the GOAT, like what are you freaking talking about?
Who knows? But one of our brigaders, Joe Martinez, actually said it right. In the comments, he said it absolutely right. He turned around and he said, what we need to do is vote blue. And I've been saying that all along since the first day we started this podcast. You got to vote blue. These folks have to get removed. And you know what? Congress could actually do something if there was the desire to be, bipartisan, if there was the desire for one side to work with the other. Nobody wants to work with the other side right now. Look at what's going on, for example, with our debt ceiling. There is a real possibility, my friends, that the Republicans are going to force this country into the very first, debt scenario that this country has ever had without even caring. They don't care what the ramifications are. They are going to, they're not going to, or they're going to continue to threaten not to raise the debt ceiling. Every day that this goes on damages the stock market, it damages people's jobs and so on. This is not only going to remove 8 million jobs from the market. On top of that, remember in 2011 when we, the very first one that came around, we went from a AAA rating by the world to AA++. All right, it's a big difference because that means it cost us more money on our dollar, paying interest to foreign entities that are buying up our debt. This is not a joke. And the very first thing that's going to end up getting cut is going to be government jobs, right? Those people who work for government, including postal workers, includes Congress members, which I couldn't be more happy about. It's all government workers, but it also affects Social Security and Medicare. So they're affecting the people because that's all of that's like 63% of the budget is already written in stone. And that's just how it is. This is going to affect the elder. It's going to affect those that need Medicare, those that are on Social Security. And so I don't understand what the Republicans are doing. So when Joe turned around and said, vote blue, amen, brother, right? That's what you need to do. These assholes that don't care about America. They only care about, playing to their base and their, raising more money from these fools that think it's a smart move, to allow the country to go into default on our debt ceiling. This is absolutely nuts. And the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for the Biden administration accounting, fooling around and moving money internally that was there, maybe earmarked for something else, May 4th today would have been the day that we would have gone into default. Instead now, Yellen believes that it'll be by no later than June 1st. I don't like that no later. I don't like it at all.
You look at a recent poll of what the MAGA Republican base, what their big issues are, what they care about. 85% say like their biggest issue is challenging woke ideas. 66% opposing any gun restrictions, 61% say Trump won in 2020, 57% of likely GOP primaries, one of their top answers and their biggest issues, they prefer a candidate who simply makes the liberals angry. This isn't serious. Like, it's not a serious party that's putting forward ideas. Look, 97% of all debt that was accumulated in our country's history predates Joe Biden. 25%.
What's amazing, Ben, is the Republicans. The Republicans are so quick to forget that Democrats raised the debt ceiling 3 times during the Trump administration. 3 times. And there are things that are going on right now. For example, this war in Ukraine, COVID, we're still paying for that, even though my understanding is that there's still approximately $1 trillion, $1 trillion that's missing from the COVID relief package. I mean, really? Are you trying to tell me that the Trump administration didn't set up some sort of a methodology in order to disperse money so that they know that the people who are receiving that money are actually entitled to it? Or they just turned around, anybody that went on the computer, type in a couple of letters, put in the name of your company, boom, oh, there's another 50 grand for me. Fuck it. I mean, $1 trillion unaccounted for.
And that was the way they handled the PPP program. Look, some version of a PPP program was definitely needed at the time. The issue is it needs to be done competently. You can't just have a system where anybody just gets, millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, especially if you have a bank relationship. You are guaranteed to have it, to get that money before other people. And then 25% of all of the debt was created by Donald Trump and through the MAGA Republican policies. Yet the Democrats raised the debt ceiling because the full faith and credit of the United States of America is a sacred thing. One, it's a constitutional responsibility to make sure that America doesn't default its debt under the 14th Amendment. But setting that aside, they're just okay with destroying the country and then just saying, you know what, we own the libs. It's Biden's fault. Look, Biden did it. And I don't know if you saw this, Cohen. You saw the new one where they say that there's a super secret whistleblower who put out this super secret letter and no one knows what it says. But then the Republicans all go on TV and make up a lie that Joe Biden accepted foreign bribes when he was the vice president. And then they just spew it like it's the truth. And then the newscasters are like,
find a nice picture. Hey, Salty, if you can, find a picture of Secret Squirrel, because that's who your super secret leaker is, all right, who wrote this note, just so our brigaders can know who I'm talking about. They're so stupid. They're so fucking stupid. They're so dangerous to our American way of life, to democracy. They are a small group. And I want to be clear about this too. It is not the vast majority of Republicans. So too many of them are still voting party line. So that is stupid. But at the end of the day, you're not talking, everyone's not a Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Matt Gaetz, a Josh Hawley. They're not. There are some very decent Republicans that are there. Why they are not standing up and holding, there you go, there's Secret Squirrel. That's the guy who is responsible. Donald, find him. And when you find him, I think he's at Central Park somewhere, playing by a tree with a nut. But at the end of I'm telling you, that's who Donald has to go find. And then everything will be set in stone for him and he'll be all good. But there are some very decent Republicans that are there. The problem is they're afraid. They're afraid to step out of line with party in order to do the right thing. I mean, there are things that Marjorie Taylor Greene saying right now that are they're so fucking gross. They're so disgusting. And they're so inappropriate for a member of Congress to say. That when I watch her say these things, and then there's no rebuke of her, and that there's no consequences, it goes right back to the magic word of the day. It goes back to accountability. There is no accountability for their stupid and their reckless behavior and antics. And that's what we need to help to put a stop with. You know, there has to be accountability to all of these folks. You cannot do and say the things that they're saying. You know, whether it's about Ukraine, whether now it's about Zelensky, you know, whether it's you cannot just, as a member of Congress, shoot from the hip and, you know, just throw out whatever it is that you want to say because that's what you believe or that is what your base wants you to say. It's unacceptable and it's improper.
How about this report from Media Matters, which says in the first year of Trump using Truth Social, Trump amplified QAnon promoting accounts nearly 500 times. And this article goes on to show post after post by Donald Trump amplifying QAnon, which is a death cult, which believes, and it's one of its central tenets, is that Donald Trump by force is going to seize control of the government, overthrow the Biden administration, have public execution. That's what the storm is coming means, and lead the country as a emperor king. That is what QAnon believes is ultimately is taking place. And so 500 times, like, could you imagine if Biden posted one QAnon meme? I would stop supporting him. For all of the great things I think Biden has done, he does one QAnon meme and it's not like he's hacked. I'd be like, I'm out. Why? Because you have to have some minimal threshold standard. And Trump just is posting QAnon cult, not once, but 500 times.
Yeah,
and then
those are basically the 500 people that subscribe to that shit platform. So, you know, look, he'll repost anyone or anything that is positive or he deems positive. Do you know how many times that this dope got fooled by people early on, where two of the people that had did a tweet that Donald found favorable, they were both mass murderers, and he was so angry about it. You know, look, I don't understand why he's doing what he's doing. I really don't understand it. It's not going to work. Who knows why these Republicans are still behind him? Why they're still actively financing this illegitimate 2024 run? You know, what's going to happen if, in fact, he is found guilty of any of these crimes that he's right now being confronted with? Let me just pull apart for 1 second the E. Jean Carroll case. Let me just use this as an example. So the E. Jean Carroll case is not criminal. I want our brigaders to know this. This is a civil harassment case, which is monetary. He will never accept responsibility, regardless of what a jury will come back with. This will be a monetary settlement, and he will ultimately get that money from, you know, these same maggots that are supporting him post the indictment. That's what he expects to do. But I want people to think about this for a brief second. Think about the charge that is levied against Trump, and for fairness, because we want to be fair in Political Beatdown, he denies the allegation. Ben, neither you nor I were there. You know, in fact, I was just finished law school when this allegedly took place. But let's not discount what E. Jean Carroll and the multitude of witnesses that she's brought in, you know, and testified that she had told them around that time, and that they have certain information. Others who claim that he did similar things. How could any woman, how could any man vote for a guy who does an act like this? One of the most heinous things that you could do to another human being, to impose yourself physically and sexually onto another person against their will. One of the most heinous things that you could possibly do. How could anybody support somebody who would do something like this? Forget about the fact that we're supporting him, or it's that he wants their support for the presidency. I don't understand where Americans are. I don't understand how a single woman, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. How could you possibly support a man who's being charged not by one person, but by more than 24 women making these statements about his behavior? I don't understand. I just don't understand it. And I'm trying to every day. I'm trying to understand why people are willing to ignore what is right in front of our face. Don't have an answer.
And so he doesn't show up at trial. He doesn't have to. It's a civil case, but he doesn't show up. He makes an excuse that he has something to do in Scotland and Ireland, which he didn't. He just makes that up to shovel shit. And this is him in Ireland earlier in the day. So technically, I think yesterday, where he said he would be flying back because he was thinking about flying back because of the trial going on. That's why he's going to leave Ireland, which again, total BS. But here, watch what he said.
Because of that, I have to leave Ireland and I have to leave Scotland, where I have great properties. I have to leave early. I don't have to, but I choose to.
Will you attend the trial, Mr. President?
I'll probably attend, and I think it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace that it's allowed to happen. It's called false accusations against a rich guy, or in my case, against a famous, rich, and political person that's leading the polls by 40 points, and I have to go back for a woman that made a false accusation about me, and I have a judge who's extremely hostile, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to confront this woman. This woman is a disgrace, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen in our country.
Cohen.
There's really nothing. There's nothing to say. He's full of shit. And if he comes back, I highly doubt that he's going to attend, the hearing. It doesn't make sense at this point for him to do it. His absence has already been noted. Personally, I hope that he does. I would like to see him make a complete asshole out of himself and do what Tacky Penis did over there and to attack E. Jean Carroll the way that he did. Talk about stupid, right? I mean, he's probably the wrong guy to have representing you, right? When you're talking about a sexual assault, a rape civil case. I don't know why they chose him, and the behavior that Tacopina demonstrated was not being that it's noted by me and that, oh, Michael, you always just want to say, mean things about Donald and his people. It's not true. I'm not the one that's saying it. I'm just repeating at this point what the press has already stated, which is that it was a vile display. It's a vile display against a woman who is making some pretty significant allegations. Now, he has the right to defend the case. Don't get me wrong, but there is a way to do it where you're not harassing and trying to intimidate. Look, Tacopina is not a small guy. It's so eerily similar to when Hillary Clinton was at the podium and Donald, during the debates, moseyed behind her and started doing the old, waddle behind her. And, there's so many reports now about how he behaves, and they're all consistent with one another. They're not identical, but they are consistent. And that's what the jury is going to be looking for. And Tacopina's assault on E. Jean Carroll is absolutely, first of all, it's disgusting, it's disgraceful, and it's actually stupid lawyering.
And Donald Trump's too cowardly to show up in court. He's not going to show up. And the language that he uses too, I have to leave to confront her, which he's just not going to do, because I think he knows that with the disinformation echo chambers out there, that'll be played on Newsmax or OAN or something, and they'll be like, oh, maybe he did show up or something. He's a tough guy, and I have to leave here. It's like, no, you went somewhere you didn't have to go because you were supposed to be in trial, and now you're saying you're going to go somewhere that you're not going to be going to. And by the way, we talked about this before here on Political Beatdown. This is why they hate courts, because it's still a place where evidence and facts matter, facts supported by evidence. What they prefer to do is go on their right-wing echo chambers and just make up stuff and just have no evidence and just spread these defamatory lies. Look, Cohen, this is a montage of Republicans accusing Biden. This all happened in the past 24 hours of serious crimes, but then admitting that they know nothing about this at all and they have no evidence to support anything that they're saying. Here, watch this montage.
We're wondering exactly what this is all about. According to a press release that was sent out by James Comer's office, it says the information provided by a whistleblower raises concerns that then Vice President Biden allegedly engaged in a bribery scheme. Does this have to do with Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings in Ukraine or China, or is it something else?
Well, I guess basically we've got to wait to see what the document exactly says.
It's a very serious allegation against the then vice president.
It is a very serious allegation. I wish I could say that I knew it was true or untrue.
But this is something new. Do you have any information on that?
I do not. I don't have any information on what the whistleblowers has alleged in terms of the specific substantive allegations.
It says specifically, the release today, that the vice president may have altered policy for money, a bribery scheme. He may have actually changed policy. Have you narrowed it down to what policies, or can you at least tell me, if you have, what area? If you can't say specifically, what do you know about it, sir? Congressman Fallon.
Well, Greg, that'll all come out, I think, and it'll come out very soon. The bottom line is, let's ask another question, very simple one. What business, what product or service did the Bidens ever provide?
This seems more direct, at least in what's being said by Grassley and Comer.
Well, this is, after all, if there's anything to it. In other words, we don't know very much. And this is an early stage of this. It doesn't keep these politicians on the Hill from coming out and talking about it and for the White House to respond. But we need to be careful here because, the air is full of charges, as it sometimes is, and we're entering the political season. So my advice is, let's be careful here.
Will your colleagues make those underlying documents publicly available? We know the whistleblower will remain protected, but what about the allegations? Will the American people see them?
Well, we'll have to see what's in them. To see whether they're credible allegations, whether they connect to other wrongdoing by the Biden family.
And if they turn out to not be credible, sir, will your colleagues acknowledge that, you think? Only got a couple seconds left.
That'll be up to them.
That'll be up to them?
Right. So let me go out there and let me spew more bullshit, more lies, without any the word of the day, accountability. No accountability here. So all of a sudden, because somebody calls up and says, hey, Josh Hawley. But by the way, I do have to say this. If you listen to all of their responses, the responses that they gave now is very different than the responses that they would have given, say, a year or so ago, when they would turn around and they would adamantly declare that Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, that they have done something wrong. Now, at least they're couching their words. Not great, but they're still couching it. We have to wait and see. And when, then we'll present the information. First of all, I don't understand why, as a member of Congress, simply because somebody wants to stick a camera in your face, that means that you have to go there and you have to say something. If you have nothing to say because you have no facts, you have no information, all you have is rumor and conjecture, my recommendation for you would be shut the fuck up. Go have lunch. Go do something. Go pass some legislation. Go figure out how to deal with the debt ceiling. But fuck the fuck off already. It's enough. Anytime that you stick a camera in one of these assholes' faces, they're just so happy to be on. Hey, look at me. Look at me. I'm going to use this as another way to milk some more money out of my unsuspecting, moronic, maggot followers. It's so stupid already. I mean, we're becoming the laughing stock of the world because of these group of, ridiculous Republicans.
And speaking of ridiculous Republicans, a press conference, one that you just discussed, you don't have to go there and say these ridiculous things. So Lindsey Graham was asked to respond to the fact that Biden was sending troops to the borders and to compare that to Donald Trump. Just watch what Lindsey Graham said in response.
Are you on the administration sending troops to the border? We heard from some reported.
I think it's ridiculous theater. It will not change the outcome.
Did you feel the same about it being theater when Trump sent troops to the border in 2018?
I feel that Donald Trump did the best job in my political lifetime. When Donald Trump did something, it worked. Everything he did, as Ted suggested, worked.
As Ted suggested, Cancun Ted. That's another one that needs to get the fuck out of town. I mean, it's, one guy lies, the other guy nods his head. All right, that's it. You know what? We know that it's true because Lindsey Graham said it and it was acknowledged by Lying Ted. I mean, well, I'm not the one who made up the name, right? Wasn't it Donald? So Lindsey Graham, right? Loser Lindsey makes up the statement and Lying Ted goes ahead and he corroborates it. There you have it, folks. Why are we even discussing this anymore? It's clearly it has to be factual.
Cohen, we've covered a lot today. I want to give you the final word. We'll end on a Cohen note. Tie it all together for us.
Yeah, there's no way to tie this. It's all about accountability. Again, I intend to hold Trump accountable, specifically on the lawsuit that I have coming up, the trial in July. It's his responsibility and he needs to make those payments. And now, as far as this lawsuit, this $500 million lawsuit, I want to again thank each and every one of you who have, helped and, helped and donated at the GoFundMe for it. This case is going to be $1 million. But at the end of the day, we will hold Donald accountable. And that's the most that anybody can expect from this case. I could not have found two better lawyers in Idanya Perry and Ben, and Ben. What I could not have found better. So please, whatever you can do, it's appreciated. The most important thing, as I'm going to go right back to Joe, you have to vote blue, and we all have to continue to promote not just Political Beatdown, Mea Culpa, but MeidasTouch as a network, including all of the various different programs, because what we try to do is we try to only speak factual. Now, does that mean we're going to get everything right 100% of the time? No. I had this conversation, as I said, with Danya and Ben Brodsky. This is a real case. We need to hold him accountable. They need to start understanding that there are repercussions for their actions. And together, and I mean it, only together will we be able to do it. I can't do this alone. I can't do it with just Ben and the Meiselas brothers. I can't do it with just Political Beatdown or Mea Culpa or, with my books. I cannot. All of us together is what's needed. We need to be the brigade, and we need to embark upon Washington as a force with millions and millions of like-minded people, and vote these fuckers out. And that's my thought of the day.
Beatdown Brigade, none of this is possible without you. We are so grateful for you. Make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you are a YouTube watcher, please subscribe wherever audio podcasts are available. Search Political Beatdown. Check out Michael Cohen's new book, Revenge, wherever books and audio books are sold. In the description below on our YouTube channel, there is the fund if you want to help support the legal efforts of Michael Cohen. Check that out in the description on the YouTube site. You can check out store.MeidasTouch.com for the best pro-democracy gear, including the official Mea Culpa podcast, Mar-a-Lardo Correctional Facility shirt, store.MeidasTouch.com. And you can also check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Thank you so much to all the brigaders. For those wondering where I am, I just took a red eye to New York. And so apologies for some of these spotty Wi-Fi. We're working on that right now. But we'll be running full speed again. Cohen, always love spending this time with you. And on the next Political Beatdown, you will have made your first file filing, substantive filing in that Donald Trump $500 million lawsuit. I can't wait to talk about that filing then and much more. So thank you everybody for watching. Shout out to the Beatdown Brigade and shout out to the Meidas Mighty.